So welcome to the music production panel. I'm going to present myself. My name is Alexandre Garceau. I am actually I'm currently project manager at Golden Path Music and also as well a freelance music producer. I'm going to be your moderator today. I hope we're going to have fun. So basically, a small intro. Music production, we all know, is a process. Being in the studio and producing tracks is a magical moment. Although music production has been becoming increasingly accessible in recent years, well-produced track requires like engineers and producers who possess the skills and experience and a great musical mind to push the project through. Let's not forget that being prepared for a studio session is also essential. So on that note, let's get started with the questions. First of all, before the questions, actually, we're gonna present our speakers today. So we're gonna start, you can raise your hand as we go along. So Varti Deuchoghlian, he has mixed, mastered, and produced for artists all over the globe with a decade-long experience in the world of electronic music. He's toured Asian market and has released music that has landed great backup from A-listers such as Above and Beyond, Sander Van Doorn, Lee Burridge, Facundo Moore, Matthias Meyer, Martin Roth, and more. And his music has been featured on a lot of great publications such as Billboard, the Billboard Mag, DJ Mag, Mix Mag, EDM.com, to name a few. And he's had sync placements in great TV shows like MTV Givenchy Fall 2018 campaign and Hulu's Letterkenny. So welcome, Varti. Now we have Corey Tardiff. Hello, Corey. He's a musician. He's a former musician. He started his career as a sound designer and an audio engineer in Montreal. He studied electroacoustics in university, and he has academic background in jazz performance as well. He's currently right now at Stingray Music as a music designer. So welcome, Corey. With Jacob now, hi Jacob, Lacroix Cardinal. He's specializing in recording and mixing. Jacob has been working closely with artists, songwriters, producers, composers to bring their art from rough cut to really a polished product with hard-hitting and emotional releases. He currently works as a house engineer for the renowned Planet Studios here in Montreal with local and international artists. He can go from full band jazz to hip hop vocals and everything in between. So his credits include Charlie Puth, Young M.A., ASAP Ferg, Bruce Aaliyah, Half Moon Run, and many more. So welcome, Jacob.
Thank you very much for having
me. Finally, we have Kevin Jardine. He has over 20 plus year of experience with his band Slaves on Dope. He's been touring the US, Canada, and Europe, and he's amassed over 100K in record sales. This also includes 4 worldwide record deals with Divine Recordings, which is a sublabel of Priority Records, MCA Records, and Rocket Science, and currently in the ILS group. He has worked with Grammy and Juno award-winning artists in his studio, along with having radio singles chart in both Canada and US. He has worked with some of the best people in the music industry: Sharon Osbourne, Tom Benunzio from Geffen Records, Arno Lani, the producer, and Troy Van Leeuwen. And Kevin's strength lies especially in songwriting and taking the artist's song to the next level, while at the same time maintaining the integrity of the band. He started with analog and tried to complement with the most recent digital gear to try to amass the best product as possible. And right now, he owns his studio. He owns his studio right now, a 1,500 square foot studio in Montreal. So that's a pretty amazing studio, I could guess. So welcome, Kevin.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So let's jump right in. So first of all, you're all experienced in the music production business, of course. So my first question for you guys would be, you know, what tools do you use to prepare yourself before studio session? Let's start with Jacob.
Coffee, lots of coffee first. That's always the first thing. Then afterwards, I'll usually go ahead and set up microphones, get everything patched in, make sure things are tested and working. You know, the last thing you want is a client to walk in and you're panicking because something's not working. So I'll usually do the preparations there. Maybe now, given the COVID times, it's a couple bottles of Purell, maybe some masks and gloves at the door. Make sure the place is clean and the vibe is nice, man. That's it.
Perfect. That's great. And then on your side, Corey, if you receive someone or if you want to start a studio session, what tools do you use?
I mean, I'll add on to that, but what the important thing that I like to do is ensure that anything that I can listen to beforehand as well, because that makes sure that you're prepared to understand what the artist is going for before they even come in. I think that's very important. And before, you know, setting anything up too, if you could do it beforehand or anything before the session, I think that's very important.
Yeah, that's a great point. Varti, on your side?
I mean, it's pretty much similar to what the guy said. What I also do, I kind of study the client as well, what he's done, where he's at, where he wants to go, and kind of make sure that I kind of cater my services to that as well, the whole experience holistically, right? So I do a lot of production mentorship with house music producers. So they're always wanting to sign to specific labels, and there's a whole culture surrounding that. So just kind of where they want to go. So a lot of that preparation is done, aside from what the guy said about, you know, the coffee, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And as for you, Kevin?
Yeah, about the same thing. You know, if we're doing a drum session, make sure the drums are properly tuned, get some new heads, strings on guitars, all the typical things that you would normally do. You know, you talk about amps, talk about guitars, talk about what you need for the session, like make sure you have it. You know, sometimes you're working on a session where actually you're gonna hire a musician for the session, so you make sure you hire the right musician for the session as well. Just being really in good contact with the artist and whoever you're producing, just to make sure you're providing them with what they need. And like everybody said, the vibe's super important. Lots of coffee, make sure everybody's comfortable. Those are super key things. Just really cater to the artist, whatever they need.
Yeah. To go off of what Kevin said too, I think very important thing, good communication prior, like before the session, because I've had times, man, where I've had clients show up without a drum kit, without they show up without amps, they show up without a bass cabinet, and it's like those are the kind of problems you don't want to have when the artist sets foot through the door, you know. So it's kind of important to really get all that stuff out of the way, get all the technicalities. What are you bringing? What are you not bringing? What do I need to get? What do you need to bring? Figure all that stuff out prior, because it's a mess, bro.
Yes, for sure. You want to keep the session as fluid as possible. Yeah, that's for sure. And following that question, when you're all receiving artists in the studio, what do you expect from them? What would be, because we all think of the artist side of it, but you as engineers, as producers, what do you expect? What would you like to have the artists do, and what would you expect from them in a studio session, Varti?
I expect artists so I work with vocalists that would come in to sing on the track, or again, producers that want to learn how to produce or sound design, whatever it is. I expect them to come in with a sense of confidence in terms of what they want to achieve or where they're going at, right? So it's the preparation of it. Singers coming prepared, knowing what they're going to sing, what their melody sounds like, you know. And but in terms more, because I do a lot of work with producers it's more kind of an understanding of what is the short-term goal, what's the long-term goal, kind of setting expectations as well. So those are all the things that I kind of expect from an artist, to be open, receptive, and also be prepared when they come to like any meeting in life, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you know, we're coming from the electric industry background with Varti and Kevin on your side with the more rock background. What would you say? What would you expect from a more rock artist or even co-bandmates?
I just want them to be relaxed and have a good night's sleep. To be honest, sleep's super underrated for what artists need to prepare for. I don't want some guy coming in, he's been partying all night, not going to perform well. And for singers, whether they, you know, specifically, whether they warm up in the studio, which doesn't bother me at all. But I always say, like, if you're coming in, just sing on your car ride in or whatever, get yourself warmed up, get yourself a little comfortable, a little bit loose, sing something you're comfortable with. And again, musicians, if they're well rested, when you get in, you feel like you're starting your day on a good foot. You know, you don't want to start exhausted and try to power through a session. Doesn't work. You want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
But singers, I like when they warm up outside. Not that I don't like hearing them sing all morning, but it sort of sets the tone for the day. They're already sort of ready to go when they come in. You just discuss what you're going to work on, and you just get them singing right away. I like doing that a lot.
It's for sure a mind space thing, like a headspace thing, you know, get them prepared mentally for that. Yeah,
for sure. And yeah, Jacob, if go ahead, what would be what do you expect from an artist, or even as a mixing engineer? What do you expect from an artist who sends a project, or even in the studio as a recording with them?
From a recording standpoint, I guess what I'd expect is a certain amount of preparation, you know, like know your lyrics, don't come in with a half finished song and finish writing it while you're there. You know, it's kind of I want the clients to come in and just, we work. That's what you're there for, right? You're paying me to work. So I don't want to sit there while you're writing lyrics for the song. You know what I mean? That's from a recording standpoint. And it kind of goes for any musician, right? Like come in knowing your guitar parts, come in knowing what kick drum you want to use, what snare you want to use. That stuff's pretty important to know before the session. And as for a mixing thing, kind of the same thing. When I get the files, I don't want audio 1, audio 2, audio 3, audio 4, audio 5 left, audio 5 right. Name the tracks properly so I know what's going on. And if you have a rough mix, send me a rough mix so I could hear kind of what your vision is and where you're at with the song. And then I could build from there. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, definitely. And Corey, of course, with your musician background, what would be your expectation for a musician or an artist that you're actually recording in the studio?
Well, I think everyone said how preparation is key. Helps with time management, helps with confidence, helps with everything right from the get-go, Yeah. And aside from that, I am also interested in finding out what the artist's intent is with the music, whether it's very small in scale or very grand in detail, if they have, a direction that they're really looking for, because I would think the most important thing is to heighten that intent. So it helps really start that conversation, figure out what's their inspirations, what are they trying to do with the music that they're trying to create. So I think that's always a good starting point as well to have that discussion.
Yeah, that's a good point. And how Monsieur, Madame, tout le monde always thinks they always think about the music production and the music that you hear on the radio as something maybe easy to do. But what are the most common misconceptions that people have about music producers in general, like in your opinion? How can we and what are those misconceptions, and how can we overcome these misconceptions and communicate more effectively to them? Or what do you think about that, Kevin?
The biggest misconception, I think, is, well, there's a lot of them, but from an artist standpoint, like the whole fix it in the mix thing, or just sort of like, oh, it's good enough thing, drives me up the wall. Also, I think a lot of bands, they don't really know, they think they know what they sound like. They think they know what their band sort of is, but they don't really know because they're on the inside. They don't have a lot of the perspective that a producer has. And I also think, like, just being sort of like knowing your sound, like knowing what you're going for, like putting on a record and saying, well, we want to sound like this, but the band sounds nothing like that. It's a big learning curve to being in a band. And you really need, with self-producing and stuff, you kind of lose a huge step. That's why producers are super important, because they give you that perspective and they give you that sort of opinion that'll sort of bring you to not where you think you should be, but where you will be. Because where most artists think they sound like something, they usually don't. They usually think, oh, we sound like whatever, like, like Metallica, and they really sound like Katy Perry. Like, they just don't get it. Like, they don't hear what they're playing. They're so busy focusing on their instrument that they don't get it. So yeah, I think those are the two most, and back to the fix it in the mix thing, like just record it properly. Same, you know, goes with tuning vocals, goes with editing drums, all that stuff. Just spend the 10 more minutes to play it right. Don't drive your producer crazy just letting him fix stuff. And if you can't execute it, don't force it in the mix, because if you can't execute, there's no point in making it there, because you're never going to do it anyways. So just put that idea aside, you know, work on your musicianship to maybe get yourself there later, but don't force it. Nothing worse than artists that you can hear it if an artist forcing anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Jacob, what do you think about that? The biggest misconceptions?
I guess Kevin really nailed it. Like, to generalize, you know, we're not miracle workers. You know, the thing has to be good at the source, whether it's a pop track or a rock track or metal or whatever, hip hop, doesn't matter. Like, it has to be good at the source, and we can capture that properly and everything's gonna be fine. But if you expect us to, you know, slap an auto tune on there and make it sound good, make it sound like a top 40s hit, it doesn't always work that way. Sure, there's a certain amount of things we could do, like tuning, editing, you know, it's possible, but if you can really nail it at the source, it's going to save a lot of time. And that's a huge misconception. You know, you don't just stand in front of a mic and you sound like Justin Bieber. You know what I mean? You got to sing like Justin Bieber, want to sound like him, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And Corey, what's your opinion about that?
I just totally agree with everything you said.
That's fine.
Not miracle workers, you know, like you get stems where it's just like there's no headroom and anything. You're supposed to clean up stuff with like loss of distortion, you know, harmonic distortion, you know, and it's like the capturing process is important. Every process that you're doing in music production is important, and that is sometimes done by different people as well. So it's a chain of events, right? And just because you get to the end of that line, you think, oh, you know, the magic's going to happen then. But it's like every part of it is very important to make sure that the sound's the best it can be. You know?
Yeah, definitely. I get that. And Varti, in the EDM world, of course, there's a lot of prejudices on how easy it is to produce EDM. What do you think about that?
Yeah, in terms of, like in electronic music, producers are artists. It's all mangled up, right? To a whole new level, where you start from the songwriting, you do the sound design, you do the arrangement, you do the recording, the tracking, you know, mixing, mastering. Sometimes it's one person doing it. So it's very easy to lose perspective. Producers, I always see producers kind of losing hope very quickly, thinking that, oh yeah, well, I did everything right. Why is it not sounding like professional or XYZ? It's all about giving yourself the time and the exposure of production and writing hundreds of songs and becoming better. The misconception that artists have that, oh, it's easy, like I'll just get a computer, get all the plugins that I need and just kind of, you know, do stuff that sounds like XYZ artist. It's just, it takes time, and be patient. And through time, there's a lot that you learn and you apply to your music. And also another misconception for electronic artists is that they think that they need to listen to their songs 8 million times to be able to find the details and correct. The least you listen to your song, the better your perception is in terms of how is a potential fan going to hear it for the first time. So like Kevin's example where, you know, there's a producer and there's a band writing the music, we got to find ways to deal with the fact that we're both. And we don't have that person. Sometimes you have a manager, sometimes you have a mentor, sometimes you have a label A&R kind of helping you out, but overall you're in the studio alone and you got to be careful with
like you have to look from the big picture. Being both sides, you have to kind of know when to look at it in detail and when to look at it as a big picture.
Yeah, and it's super important. I always tell artists, it's weird what I'm going to say, but don't get attached to your music too much for a lot of reasons. But one of them is the more you get attached, the more you become anal retentive on specific details, which on a global thing don't really matter. It's not what's going to make someone feel good. You know, it goes back to the songwriting, the sound design, the flow of the track, and, you know, not over listening to your music 8 million times a day.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, you know, talking about listening to your music 8,000 times a day.
8 million.
8 million, sorry. 8 million times a day. Talking about that, how did you know, trends and current selling platforms, you know, as Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music affect you as an artist, but also as a producer. I think it's maybe an important point to talk about real quick. I don't know if you guys changed the way you produce, the length of your songs or anything. What do you think about that, Corey?
Got that on mute. Yeah, I mean, in terms of you know, let's say at a compositional standpoint, I wouldn't say anything changes there. You know, like when you're making music, I put forth, you know, what's the genre, what's the style, what's the aesthetic that they're going for. I think in terms of platforms, it definitely just changed how music's distributed. Definitely changed loudness targets, you know, for mastering as well. But I don't think a platform should necessarily change the art the artist is making, unless that's a business choice that they're making, that's an approach they're trying to take, sure. But, you know, really make the music that you want to make, and don't let other factors influence that. You know, you should do it because you love it.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Jacob, what's your thought? What are your thoughts about that?
I have kind of a more philosophical view of it, where I guess now music is being consumed more than ever, and it's being like, to summarize, I guess the album is dead. Now it's all singles, right? Like everybody wants to put out singles because it's borderline about quality over quantity to stay relevant, because there's so much music out there, and it's being consumed so much that, you know, a lot of people will go to albums and they'll skip 3-4 songs to get to their 1 or 2 songs that they really enjoy, instead of how it was, you know, years back, where you would go out, you'd buy a record, you'd listen to it from front to back, and that was it, you know. I think that's changed a lot, and it's made it so productions oftentimes they don't have a long intro. You know, it's like 2 seconds and the chorus has to hit, or you're going to lose your audience. You know, there's some things that I think changed in the writing style. As far as like the technical stuff, like loudness and stuff, it's all subjective. I master and mix as loud as I possibly can, because I know Spotify is going to turn it down anyways. So might as well make it loud to begin with.
Yeah, that's true. Kevin, on the rock side, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, yeah, I do a lot more than just rock, but yeah, look, I agree. You're writing music, you're producing music for yourself, but you'd be silly to not sort of take into consideration your audience that you're doing this for. And I think, you know, there's merit to 9-minute progressive rock songs if that's your target audience, and it's not, you know, necessarily Spotify, or you're a Norwegian death metal band that's, you know, say, you know, you sort of it kind of goes back to what I said before. You're going for your demographic. You need to know who your audience is, and you have to sort of cater to them. Yes, you do write for yourself. The band goes in the studio, they want to make songs, they want to be happy when they leave, but it can't be pulled in 50 different directions. It has to be focused, and the more focused it is, the more chance you have at success. That doesn't mean it's formulaic or anything like that, but the fact is that's again why you hire producers, to make sure you're getting, you know, what that genre of music is, what that, even if you're crossing genres, that you're getting the end goal, and then all the other stuff will sort of fall into place. There's all, you know, there's always going to be new technologies, there's always going to, you know, to consume music, all that kind of stuff, but it's an inherent connection with the fan that you're sort of going for. And you have to make sure you knock that out in the studio. And that's through a lot of hard work and trial and error. You know, back to what Varti was saying, I love that you said you got to let go of your songs. Like this is a process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You got to go in the studio, try different producers, try different, you know, amps, try different arrangements through your career. Keep doing it till you find that thing that works and connects with the audience. And then once that goes, you start building from it. But yeah, as far as the Spotify, like that's just how they sort of consume. It doesn't really matter whether it's YouTube, Spotify, on vinyl, on a cassette, on whatever, MP3, who cares? Like, just make great music. People will find you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And you know, Varti, what do you think about this? Especially EDM, which is a little bit more recent popular genre. Did it affect your production style, your mixing style, mastering? What do you think about that?
Not really. It didn't affect the artistry itself.
Okay.
What's important in terms of the promotional angle of approaching these retailers is that if you're writing an 8-minute progressive house track with a minute-long intro, minute-long outro for DJs to mix in the original mix or the extended mix, you want to have the radio edit ready as well, even if it's not a vocal track necessarily, simply because radio edits are easily placed in higher profile Spotify playlists versus an 8-minute song. So shorter songs do stream well, even in dance music, right? So that's something that we kind of, and it wasn't necessarily an adaptation that we had to do because pre-Spotify, vocal tracks, vocal dance tracks still needed a radio version to be played on satellite radio, etc. Right? So, but overall, the guys brought up a lot of interesting points. It's just to be able to kind of understand the platform as well. Spotify, it's all about placements on playlists, running the algorithm in your favor. It's quite complex because it shifts a bit like Facebook. But overall, partnering with the right teams, right management, right collaborations, just increases your chances for high level like editorial placements, which really spikes up your numbers.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That seriously. And you know, if we go a little bit, you know, more about the engineering side of it, because we know that it might be something that people are not very aware of, or they don't really know what it is if they haven't worked in the industry. But for people who don't know much about engineers behind the music, why, in your opinion, is it important to have a good or a great engineer for any producer or artist? So let's start with Kevin.
Well, the engineers who captures the sound, right? If you're speaking specifically from an acoustic sort of, you know, environment, they're the one that captures it. So if you're coming in, you know, with a specific sound you're going for, you need them to understand, you know, if you want your drum kit to sound, you know, you like that, you know, Beatlesy type drum sound, or you like that huge wall of guitars, or you like that, you know, huge vocal sound. Like, you need your engineer to understand, you know, what tools you need to get you to the point where when you listen to your recording, you're there. So it's one of those things that just doesn't happen. You just don't slap a plug-in on that says, you know, old Beatles drum kit, or, you know, or huge wall of guitars. There's techniques it takes to get there. And that's why, you know, for myself, working on multiple genres, it gives you that sort of insight on how to get there. But I'm big on mixing. Like, I'm big on like having elements from one genre cross over to another, because that's what keeps it interesting. So having, you know, somebody that knows only how to do one thing is awesome. That's great. Having somebody who's multiple, that's great as well. It's really your ends to means. But engineering is, you know, it's almost more important than mixing, because if it's well engineered, it's very easy to mix. And everybody knows that. If you get great tracks, man, it's like just push the faders up and put a little reverb on and go home. Like, it's easy.
Yeah, definitely. That's really interesting. And I'm curious to have your side on this, Jacob, because I know you're mostly an engineer, whether it's recording, mixing, or mastering. So what do you think about that?
I would say,
what is yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I would look at it like I look at it a little more from I guess, how would I say it? Customer service standpoint too. Like, what's important about having a good engineer is the engineer has to know how to make you comfortable. Like, as an artist, you know, from the moment you walk in to the moment you walk out, you have to, as an artist, you have to feel comfortable and creative, right? So if, let's say you're hosting somebody to your home studio to do a recording session, whether it's guitars or vocals or whatever, you know, as an artist, if I walk in and I see like a pair of dirty underwear on the ground, you know, your dog hair all over the place, your roommate's taking a shower, that's not really going to make me feel comfortable and creative. You know what I mean? Usually what I'll do to make an artist feel good and to have them perform at their best, I'll make the vibe good. I'll get some candles, I'll get some colored lights or something and dim the lights, you know, make it look all nice and vibey. And then it gets them creative and it makes them perform better. I think that's the key to getting good sounds, really. Above, like, also with having good songs and good parts. Yeah,
that's a really great point. And we can almost change a question as to what are the best qualities that an audio engineer can have, Corey?
Well, like what we were speaking about before in terms of like preparation, right? An engineer is preparing in a different way. You might, be practicing your chops as a drummer for hours
I'm
and
sorry.
hours.
I'll jump in.
Oh,
Okay.
hello, Simon.
He's frozen in
I'm just
time.
gonna cut.
I think you were muted, Simon.
Hello, S12, does it work? Can you hear me?
It's sort of working. It's sort of working.
And he's out.
Almost.
Just one. All right, just one moment.
There he is.
It's a fresh
Did it
background.
work?
The joys of 2020.
Yeah, man. Everyone's doing Zoom meetings.
All right. So basically, what he wanted to say is that he wanted to proceed to the audience questions. So let's go for the audience question. So we have a question here from Steven Laperrière, who asks, how do you approach a production with an artist or band that you don't necessarily listen to or enjoy listening to, specifically? Let's start with Varti.
If it's a style that I don't specialize in, because I specialize in electronic music, then I won't take on that client. I rather refer it to another professional in the industry. There's just so much depth in knowledge in a way. Let's say a melodic deep house song needs to be produced versus a festival banger EDM song, right? So I feel like I have a lot on my plate already in terms of guiding them through the process. So that would be my approach. If it's something that's in the electronic realm and it's a song that I don't enjoy, I remember my days when I was starting to write music and it sucked. and I just am patient and I try to help as much as I can in terms of, there's something that this producer, in my case, right, or artist is hearing and they like that. And I have to respect that. And if they keep on working, it's only going to get better anyway. So that's kind of my stance on both the questions.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Kevin, on your side?
Look, you always get clients when they send you their demos of their songs, they might be a little lackluster. I do a lot of writing with clients, so we'll sort of sit down and I'll listen to all the demos that they have for their record. I'll pick all the songs that I think are the best, and then we sit down, we discuss. Sometimes they're full teardowns, like we literally keep like one riff from the whole song, rewrite the whole song from the bottom up, all the drum parts, bass parts, vocals, lyrics, melodies, everything. So in the end, it might come in one way, but it leaves in a completely other way where I'm content. And I think that's a huge part of the learning curve for artists, is that, songwriting is it's an art in itself, but you get better the more you write. I can't expect, a bunch of 20-year-old kids to write amazing songs. They might not have that talent yet. But I show them a lot of tricks and a lot of things that they can use in their career as they keep writing, that at least help them on the way, or at least make it a little more clear, more concise. So I do a lot of writing. So for me, yeah, they might come in and I might be sort of like, eek, that one's tough, but just as long as they're open for it. Some artists aren't, and that's when it gets a little tricky, but usually I end up twisting their arm and we rewrite stuff. It's part of the process for me writing in the studio. Like I never have sessions where something doesn't change. And usually, I don't want to say dramatically, but usually fairly big, especially lyrics and melodies. You can almost make anything musically, if it's verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, it's pretty solid. It's the vocal melodies and the lyrics that are usually the most work. But yeah, you just work on it, just keep working. Even if it's not in your genre, it's still music, whether it's, death metal or pop. It still has to have a hook, has to be compelling, the lyric has to be strong. So you just sit with them until you've accomplished that.
I have a very different kind of outlook on that. As a house engineer of a studio, I most oftentimes have to take whatever gig comes through the door, whether it's somebody with a lot of experience or somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience. So part of my job when an artist comes in that I'm not necessarily crazy about the music, then it comes down to customer service, where I got to make them feel comfortable no matter what. You know, sometimes you just gotta pretend to enjoy it to make them feel comfortable, and ultimately the end goal is they're happy with the product, whether you enjoy it or not. You gotta, you know, that's your job, is to make them happy. And then from another perspective too, for other guys who are producers and beat makers or stuff like that, the artist has to pick the right guy for the job.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point as well. Changing the perspective of it. That's actually really good. And Corey, do you want to finish off with this question with what you think about it?
Yeah, it is a collaborative effort, so that's great. You know, I try to bring as much objectivity as I can. Obviously, we all have our preferences. You know, you can really only use with what you have, and you try to just heighten that. So again, what I was saying before, like finding out the intent and the reason for certain choices at a sound design standpoint, compositional standpoint. You know, you really want to get into the mindset of the artist, and like Kevin was saying too, it's like that collaborative effort and having the artist being open to that, it just makes for a better end result, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, guys, I'm gonna pass the word to Simon. I just want to say thank you for all your questions and your time.
Thanks.
And hope to meet you in the future, or maybe see you next year.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
guys.
good one.
Hello, it's me again.
Hey.
Hey.
Terribly sorry about all the problem. I don't know what's going on, but hey, that's Zoom, so we have to deal with it. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of me, Golden Path Music, Alyssa, Syncopated Noise. We've been working really hard on this. This is also the first panel of the day. So everyone who's still here, I mean, stay tuned. We have a really cool day with a lot of information for you guys. I also want to let you know that we will be accepting donations that will go towards next year edition, and hopefully it would be all in the same room physically. So let's really hope for that. Again, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Thank you for the people who were joining us, and we will see you in about 15 minutes for the next panel.